In terms of youth and transition, even when children are, I think this is kind of a point that's often missed, is that even when children are under guardianship because they're under 18, it's really important for parents to practice involving their children in increasing amounts of decision making. And then for practitioners, whether that be in the medical field or education field or otherwise, to make sure that they are directly engaging with the person with the disability and not overlooking them, even when they are a minor, of course, and I'm sure you all already do this, but, encouraging and supporting that person to participate in their IEP meetings at younger ages, and just make sure that it's clear to them that they are the decider, or they're the decider with support and can continue to be. I think somebody's got some desk noise going on. If you want to check and see if you're muted, that would be great. So opportunities for implementation, we are still very young and early in this law. Like I said, it just passed in 2018. Many families are interested in using this alternative, but I think they're finding themselves as pioneers. My own personal story is that our daughter is at risk for glaucoma, and she has to go under anesthesia annually to get her pressures checked in her eyes, because she can't do that in a regular doctor's office. And so those appointments are made with the hospital many months in advance. And the year that Erica turned 18, like I mentioned, I was actually working on this legislation, but supported decision making was not law yet. And we got a call from the nurse in the hospital the day before the under anesthesia eye check appointment. And the nurse was clarifying whether or not my husband and I were my daughter's guardian. And we said no. And she said, well, it looks like from her file that she's not going to be able to make any decisions, so I'm going to have to cancel the appointment. And this was a nurse who had never met our daughter, but had just, by looking at her file, determined she was somebody with an intellectual disability, and she would not be able to sign the consent forms for the hospital. We ended up getting around that by activating a healthcare power of attorney, which was not the right tool in that particular situation, but it sufficed for the hospital, because what we're finding, particularly in the medical arena, and then I think also in the financial arena, they have their lawyers and liability and legal practices in place that, unless they have the form that basically says they aren't, that somebody has given permission for this, then it doesn't flow with what their legal system has said. So I don't know if that makes sense. I'm not really explaining it very well. But a similar example is a friend of mine who was trying to help his son open an ABLE account with the bank. And so ABLE is a special savings account for people with disabilities. And so he was on the phone with the bank, with his son and supporting his son. And the bank was asking the person with a disability a series of questions. And George, my friend, who's the father, was supporting his son to answer the questions. And at some point in the conversation, the bank said, "Who is helping you?" And the dad clarified that he was helping his son. And the bank said, "Well, if you aren't able to make this decision, and your father isn't the guardian, we can't open an ABLE account for you." So there's just some confusion in the system, and an expectation that the guardian is supposed to be stepping in for the person. And so these early users of supported decision making are really, like I say on the slide here, pioneers and kind of educating outside of our education world, our IRIS world, our family care world, about what this is. So those traditional referral sources that I talked about earlier, those schools and sometimes courts and doctors, long-term care programs, I think right now are just starting to integrate supported decision-making into their policies and practices. Of course, you're sitting on this webinar today trying to learn more about it. I know that DPI has things on their website. I know the TIG Transition Improvement Grant Project has been putting out information and trainings, but it's kind of slow, and families, I think, are often going to be the ones that are bringing this up or thinking about it. Um, and then again, I think as an opportunity, Wisconsin has that limited guardianship system, but the guardians typically, in a lot of cases, I should say, are doing more or taking on more decisions than what the law has really granted them permission to do. So a lot of us are looking at guardian training as something that's really important, and not just to mitigate kind of guardian overreach, but to support people who are put into guardian roles. A lot of times siblings and other family members are asked to become guardians when mom or dad passes, and they really get little to no support on understanding the system or what the roles of being a guardian actually mean. So we think there's a great need for guardian training, and we're hoping that that will become law very soon. So as I wrap up our conversation here, just a little bit about my daughter. The pictures you're seeing on the screen are my daughter Erica, and like I have been telling you, she is somebody with a significant intellectual developmental disability. She doesn't talk. She doesn't read or write. And but she is somebody who works 4 mornings a week at a local restaurant. She works 2 hours in the morning, and then she volunteers on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. And we're hoping to build in another afternoon job for her 2 other days out of the week. So she is somebody who's very active and productive and earning money and participating in her community, and is very capable of making all sorts of choices. Deb, I think you're muted. If you could just confirm that that you're hearing me again.
I am seeing you now.
All right, now I'm getting back to my slide.
Back to your slide. Oh, yes.
All right. So I was talking to you about the name stamp. So that's how Erica signs documents. In fact, we had an IRIS meeting with her IRIS consultant last night. And as you all know, she had to sign a whole bunch of forms, and we were stamping and explaining to her, what the forms were and the types of supports that she was putting into her plan. Here, I'm going to try to, the next slide. These are short video clips of how we've kind of built some choice making into Erica's day. These were parts of IEP goals and accommodation supports that, well, they're still part of her IEP. She turns 21 in June, but they're incorporated throughout her day so that she gets lots of practice with choice making and decision making. And I'll just play them, and hopefully you can hear them or see them.
You're sitting by the windows. Do you want to do windows first? No? You want to do silverware first? Right? You want to do silverware first? Okay. Let's go do silverware.
So that's a really short clip, but Erica is really good at signing yes and no. And it's one of the first things that we teach people about her is to, if you can reframe a question as a yes or no question, you're probably going to get a pretty definitive answer out of Erica. So I don't know if you could see that in that little, but she's flapping her hand as a yes, and she's given choices at work of what tasks she wants to do. And here's just another example of how they do that at her job with the use of symbol pictures.
Which one would you like to do first, Erica? Tables? bar stools. Which one would you like to do next? Specials, windows, and bar. Good job, Erica.
I have to say, that she has a fantastic job coach person that's a educational assistant at school. And being as a parent, being sent those little video clips showing what Erica can do has made a huge difference for me as a parent. There are so many things that Erica does out in the community at her work that I never thought she would be able to do. And it just amazes me every time. And I think that might be true of a lot of parents, because if you're a parent yourself, you know, you grew up with your children, and you often see them as those little kids that they used to be. And I think that being a parent of a child with a disability, you have that same perspective, but it's so important to be able to support self-determination in your young person with a disability. So when the professionals that surround Erica send me these video clips or even short stories about cool independent things Erica has done during a given day, it really helps me to have confidence that she's capable of a lot of things and is still growing and learning and becoming more mature.
Which one
every
would you
day.
like to do first, Erica?
All right, let me see if I can get us to our next slide. So there are a lot of really great resources out there around supported decision making. If you, here are the links to the law, the links to that actual agreement form. And I really think that the Board for People with Developmental Disabilities has some of the best really practical resources out there, whether or not you're a family member or a professional. They have a worksheet for people to think about what kinds of things they need help with, who their supporters might be. They have tracking forms so people can keep track of who has their decision-making agreement, and which is really important because a decision-making agreement can be revoked at any time by either party, so that it becomes immediately null and void. And so I think that there's a lot of reasons to keep good records about who is supporting you and who has your forms. There's also really good FAQs, and then more discussion around guardianship alternatives, because I feel like people are going to continue to have questions about that. Is guardianship the right thing for this person? And I really think it deserves a lot of thought of what are all of the potential options out there, and how are you making the right decision alongside another family. So here's where that FAQ is. I think they're going to find a lot of lingering questions. I'm sure I'm not going to be able to address all of them today. So make sure you're going to, so BPDD, if you're not aware, the Board for People with Developmental Disabilities. So a lot of really great resources on their website. And let me see if that, oh, I think that's it.